Hello and welcome back to another episode of the Cup Interviews. My name is Jillian Robinson. I am the associate producer here with Cup of Hemlock Theatre and your host for this episode. And joining me today, I have two fabulous artists, musicians, performers. They do it all, and dear friends of mine, Katie Miller and Steve John Dale. How are you both doing?
We're doing good.
Yeah.
No complaints.
Nice. Well, we're so excited to have you on the show today. But before we get into anything, of course, we have to do the usual "What's in your cup" introduction. So, what are you both sipping on today?
Do you want me to go first?
Sure.
Okay. I've got multiple cups. I've got green tea in my Legally Blonde mug, and then I also have a little bit of cheeky whiskey on the side as well.
Ooh, yes.
Multiple cups. Yeah.
I have sparkling water and also whiskey.
Yeah.
Yes. I love that.
Yeah.
Cheers all around. I'm drinking some peppermint tea in the cup. So cheers. Woohoo! Okay, so to start it off, I love that you both sipped that at the exact same time. To start us off,
a lot of time together. Yeah.
Tell us about yourselves. How did you both get into theater, the arts? It's kind of a broad question.
I guess I'll go first. Sure. So I'm from Calgary, Alberta, originally, and I started as a classical singer and then quickly fell in love with musical theater. And then I went to school. I got my BFA in musical theater from Webster Conservatory in the States, and have now been working as a theater professional in mainly New York and Toronto, but kind of across the States and Canada. And then I met Steve, and we became a writing duo as well. Yeah, that's my background. Yeah.
Yes. I went to Humber College for music. I had a music degree, and kind of prior to that, I didn't really have a concept of what musical theater even was. So yeah, I just someone reached out to me if I could sub in on a very last minute gig. I think it was like a pit band thing. It was for Avenue Q. Yeah. I've kind of gotten more and more into it through that theater, and here we are writing musicals now.
Yeah.
Amazing. Yeah. So that segues beautifully into sort of one of the main reasons why we're here. The two of you co-wrote a new musical over the pandemic called Flash, which will be premiering at the Calgary Fringe Festival this summer. Woot woot. So tell us about Flash, or as much or as little as you'd like to tell us about Flash. What is it the show about? And its creation and origin story, I guess.
Yeah, so we started working on Flash kind of at the beginning of the pandemic. I think we started writing the first song in August of 2020. And yeah, it's kind of the elevator pitch of Flash. It's a contemporary song cycle. It's for people who experience a life and death moment. So they are going through reliving their life in the space between life and death. So kind of, as people say, when you experience something like that, everything flashes before your eyes. So yeah, it's the vignettes of what's important to these individual characters and the journey that they go on in this drawn apart space. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
No, that's pretty much
the
it.
elevator pitch.
Yeah.
But yeah, so we started working on this in 2020. Yeah, we were kind of looking to, is our first collaborative project. So we were, really excited to work on something together. And so it's been truly a pandemic, our pandemic baby.
Mm-hmm.
And we're so excited and just Jill is in the show in Calgary, which we're so thrilled and excited to have her flying all the way to Calgary. But yeah, so this will be our first public performance of it, which we're really excited about.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I guess it was born. We started writing it. Kind of, we were talking about things we liked in musical theater, things we wish we saw more of in musical theater, and we're like, well, we should write, because I don't think either. Have you ever written stuff before?
Never a musical, for sure.
Yeah.
So yeah,
I've never written. So
yeah. And I don't know if we mentioned this up top. Steve is a guitar player. So I guess you can kind of talk more to this. But a lot of musical theater is centered around, well, all musical theater basically.
Well, a lot of it, yeah.
Yeah.
It's piano, yeah. So,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, there is no piano in this show.
Yeah. So we really wanted to create something that maybe explored other instrumentation as kind of that, not only in the show itself, but as a part of the rehearsal process too. As someone,
Composition process.
Yeah.
It's not composed on a piano. I don't play piano at all, so yeah.
Right.
And as someone coming from a musical theater background, that was a big learning curve for me because everything I've learned has always been on the piano. And it's funny, I remember like first starting to play with Steve and even asking him to plunk out notes for me, like on the guitar, obviously. And my ears had such a hard time registering that sound and like finding like just basic things like pitch matching. I remember being difficult to kind of tune my ear to. So
that's pretty common in my experience.
Yeah.
And, especially in musical theater, because the piano is so central and it's funny because guitar is like, I don't know if this is true or not, but like certainly one of the most common instruments in North America. So the fact that singers are having a hard time like hearing it and hearing their note within the guitar, I'm like, it's kind of like it was kind of bizarre to me always.
Yeah.
We hear guitar all day, like when you go shopping, you hear it on the radio, and you go, it's all over the place. But
well, I can even, speaking to that, and now that Katie has said yes, I'm coming along this fabulous journey with the two of them. I'm so excited, and I feel so honored to be part of this project. And I guess personally, kind of going through the musical materials that Katie and Steve have provided for me thus far, I have noticed now that you're kind of bringing it to the forefront, Katie, like, it is a totally, didn't really click that it is, because like personally, I've sung musical theater, but I've also done like pop. My voice sits in like pop and folksy vibes as well. And so like I've done a little bit of like singing that's not musical theater, and then musical theater that is very like note specific. And it wouldn't even dawn on me like a lot of musical pieces are, like you said, all pretty well derived from piano sort of foundations and accompaniment. And it's true. It's like to me with musicals or like the traditional musical, the sense, being the singer, I know I have a process where it's like, do I listen to the music and then like follow note by note on the score? Or do I listen to the music just like reading the libretto, which is like the lyric version of a musical? But with this piece, because the guitar is sort of like the accompaniment foundation, I am finding, I'm like needing to have like the musical brain on to follow the notation, but like the flavor of like when you're just standing at a mic singing casually, like it's kind of like a meshing of genres for me, learning wise. I don't know if that makes any sense to anyone who's listening, but
no, it totally is. It's a different experience for me for sure. So it's been such a cool learning opportunity, and I'd be so curious to go do a show. Well, I mean, this wouldn't make any sense, but like where a saxophone is, you know what I mean? Like there's so much cool like instrumentation out there that, to in addition to, obviously we know so many beautiful piano players as well, but in addition to kind of that, that instrumentation. So it's interesting. Yeah.
So I think pivoting us to kind of, we're in the same realm, but like talking, just like hitting the nail on the head of the stylistic category that this musical falls into, which is song cycle based, correct? And would you describe it as like acoustic folk or just like acoustic ethereal?
I'll let you take that one.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. And maybe breaking down for listeners, viewers too, like what is a song cycle musical as opposed to like a book musical?
Yeah, so so a song cycle typically is something that's sung through, but I guess kind of to differentiate it from something like a rock opera or something like Les Mis or something like JCS, ours is kind of vignette based. So each of the songs could be a standalone story in itself. But really the basic is just something that's sung through. So there's no, or very, very few book scenes We have a few book
Yeah,
scenes.
just started.
We just started adding like little book scenes in just to kind of make things a little bit clearer in some ways. And but they're very small. They're like maybe 3 or 4 lines of text. So but in terms of style,
stylistically, I mean, I kind of one of the things I was thinking, I was like, well, and it's hard for me to really kind of pinpoint this. Like, is it because it's written on the guitar that makes it sound the way it does, or is it because of my background? Because I don't have as much of a musical theater background as I do. Like, I went to jazz school, and I was really into kind of like more contemporary jazz, and that's what I've written in mostly. I've mostly written instrumental contemporary jazz. That's kind of I think that there's definitely like flavors of that, and the way that I approached the writing was kind of in that vein. But I would say stylistically, contemporary musical theater is probably the kind of the central thing. I wouldn't say it's funny that you say folk, because I don't know. I mean, we have there's a few different kind of flavors within it, but I mean, it is acoustic guitar and percussion, and so folk instruments, but not necessarily folky. It doesn't sound like folk. It's it's a little bit too dark. It's a little bit too just like dissonant, I think, for
Well, I think that's something you both are bringing. You're marrying, like kind of like you're saying, two genres kind of together. Like, because again, hearing the material, it is sort of like musical theater seems like its core. But then, like you're saying, Steve, without me even knowing, I feel like my brain was like, oh yeah, it's got a folksy feel just because there's a guitar and percussion, right? But it's like, no, actually, it's kind of like you just said, the instruments used for that genre and then infused with musical theater. And I think that's a sound that's not very common. And I would like to ask too, or maybe pick your brains of sort of like a chicken and egg situation. Like, did the two of you have this story before the music, or were you kind of tinkering with the music and then the story evolved? That also might be a lot, so feel free to percolate.
Definitely the latter for sure. We sorry,
we talked about it first, didn't we?
We didn't. Well, because we had kind of a general concept. I was really interested in. I had seen this. I think it was like a BuzzFeed video. This is so silly.
I love it.
It was talking about. It was they had. I think it was 80 people from the ages of 4 to 84. And they asked them what their biggest fear was. And it was just so interesting to me because, you have these little 4-year-olds who, their biggest fear at the time is, that they're going to get broccoli for lunch or whatever it is. And then, and actually some of them, it's funny too, like some of these little children, like clearly have experienced a lot and had kind of very, what I would deem as an adult fear. And then, but I was so interested in that concept of like fear and how we all know what it is, but the degree at which we experience it and what causes that for us is obviously very different. And that's not what the show is about at all. I think that's what kind of initially was we were kind of like, oh, we have I'm sure you've seen this, Jill. We have a Dropbox that has all of our demos and scores and stuff. And I think it still is called Fear Song Cycle. Yeah. Which is, so we kind of talked about that a bit. And then,
that was a pretty early conversation. Yeah, I remember that was pretty early on. And we didn't actually start really writing anything for a long time. And then I think I was just like, kind of like, I'm always kind of like, I'm writing out ideas as they come to me, like, musical ideas. And I kind of had something, and I was kind of trying to write lyrics to it, just, not for this, just for myself, And then I brought it to Katie, and she was like, well, this might work well for this project. And then, like, that's really kind of when we started. And we kind of, like, picked up a lot of steam from that point. It was, like,
nice.
That was, like, the end of August when we were getting back. And then as soon as we got into September, we started, like, making a demo for that and started thinking of new songs and started talking about characters and stuff like that.
Yeah, so it's kind of a complex question because I think a lot of it happened kind of, it was very interwoven with, and then, but the first song that we wrote was it's the opening song, well, the second to opening song of the show. And it was a completely different concept before.
What was it initially called?
Urge to Fly.
Urge to Fly.
Yeah, it was kind of about
Can't Deny.
Yeah. But it was about a character who was, deciding whether or not they were going to leave a relationship, basically, and kind of whether or not, even though they were happy in that relationship, maybe it wasn't serving them anymore, and that scary feeling of being so comfortable in something and
right.
Yeah, having to choose to leave, basically, like maybe there's something better, and then it's completely evolved.
Well, it still is that, but not in a like a romantic relationship, a different kind of relationship.
A different kind, yeah. But yeah, we wrote that very early on, and it was kind of the catalyst for the whole thing. Yeah.
That's so interesting. Just get like behind the curtains of the OG process. So would you both want to talk about like the characters in the show? You also don't have to. It's up to you. I'll leave you.
Yeah, we totally can.
Yeah.
Actually, this kind of goes back to an earlier question, but another reason, when we were kind of thinking about writing something, we wanted to write, something where the actors are not men or are genders that I think that we don't see a lot of on stage or see less of than cis men. And so there's 4 characters in the show, and they are roughly based after the 4 elements. So we've never named them because we never say their names in the show, and we think that kind of the element encapsulates who they are. So we have fire, air, earth, and water. Yeah, and we can kind of, I don't know if this is too long, Jill, but we can go into kind of like the different characters a little bit too.
If you two, absolutely, this is your playground. We would love to hear about it.
Sure. Yeah.
You're going to be better at this than me. For sure.
I'm sure you'll have lots of feelings too. We can so the character that Jill's going to play is Air, is our Air character, and Air we kind of always say is like the most modeled after myself, just someone with like very intense anxiety, and kind of the way that what they explore in the show is the way that manifests for them, and how they portray that to other people as opposed to how it kind of actually feels internally. And then we have Earth, who is someone who's very kind of like not outwardly emotional, very stoic, very grounded, who over the course of the show is dealing with the loss of a parent. So kind of how that affects them internally. And then we have Water, who's kind of our most I was going to say most interesting, but I think our most kind of talked about characters. We've really tried to figure out who they are.
Yeah, for some reason the most challenging.
The most challenging, yeah.
To kind of just write for. Yeah, the other one's just kind of like we've gone through some of those songs. Have gone through like many iterations, rewrites and stuff like that.
Yeah, but
conceptually, yeah,
totally.
Yeah.
Yeah, but Water right now. So Water, when we think of Water, we think of someone who's very fluid, very changeable, very kind of like adaptable to change. So our Water character is someone who is
fit a mold. That's the thing.
They fit a mold. Yeah.
So that's why they're so challenging. Like they can be whatever you want it to be. Yeah.
Totally. And it's funny too, talking about that first song. Water is the person who sings that first song when they're kind of deciding whether or not to leave this relationship, and the relationship they're debating whether or not to leave is their relationship with the church and their church community. So kind of seeing the horrors of that and kind of going through the process of, this thing that they've lived their entire life, and kind of really starting to question and understand that they need to leave, basically. And then Fire is our last character, and Fire, just as Fire sounds, is someone who's very quick to anger. And is with the concept of fire, we kind of wanted to talk about what if you realized that you were the villain, so that you were the person who was hurting the people you love with kind of your own toxic actions, and and kind of exploring that and those feelings.
Right.
Yeah.
And people are scared of fire.
Yeah.
Instead of being like they're the object of fear, right? So,
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the only one that's really like that, I guess. But yeah, I mean, all the characters, like they like they don't live in their own little bubble. Like they're all related, so we get to kind of experience other people's fears towards the fire character.
How they interact. Yeah, those are the characters. Yeah,
I love that. Yeah, little synopses for each of our elements, and I'm looking so forward to seeing like how each element manifests themselves in the story. But then, kind of like Steve, what you just cracked open is like, how do they sort of how are they interwoven with each other, or how does like their element characteristics rub off on each other, right? Like, that's gonna be super interesting to explore. Yeah, because every element brings a different energy. If the four of them are in the car together, you can only imagine, right? Like, it's a really corny way of breaking it down, but great. So you were saying earlier, Katie, this is the first time you've both collaborated together. So is this the first time that both of you are producing your own work? And if so, how is that going? If you wouldn't mind like talking about that, like what are some pros and cons of wearing multiple hats for a project like this?
Yeah, I actually don't know that answer for you. Is this the first time you're producing your own work?
In musical theater,
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
I've led projects and co-led projects before, but it's just like original music projects and just kind of get together and play the music and get a bar gig and go play the music and nothing like this. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It has been really. It's so different, right? Especially as an actor, like I'm kind of realizing like I just show up. I obviously kind of know, my lines and I'm ready to play and kind of all that stuff. And there's so much behind the scenes that, it's just a lot of added layers. And I think too, we haven't really faced the full force of that yet. I think that we'll really have a lot to say about it, like when we're actually there and stuff. Yeah, but even, things as simple as, you're so like good at being like stage manager, Jill. For me, it's been so different even to like get a cast together and get a schedule together and get, we've recently started promoting stuff, and even that's been, like, oh, I actually have to do this. No one else is gonna do it for us. Well, we've had some awesome help, but like my mom created a great, beautiful poster for us that we're really, really excited about, and like,
Jill's been promoting us
all
day.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
This interview is going to be,
And like, the team at Calgary Fringe has been, so supportive in this journey too. So I feel like we haven't really kind of felt what that's going to feel like yet, or at least I haven't really. Yeah,
I'm sure challenges will arise. I typically don't. It's been a long time since I've led a project, because I like to show you know,
I know,
and I like helping other people. Like I like being a side guy and helping people, but also I have a lot of ideas, and sometimes it's hard for me to let go of those ideas when the lead it's not what the leader wants. So it's nice to be able to be the leader and be able to my ideas. I can say this is what we're doing. So
it's also so much more. It's so much scarier because it feels very personal. Like, when you're going in as an actor, like obviously being an actor, we know is so vulnerable and people tear you apart for all sorts of just wild things. But when you're kind of coming forth with, especially something that this was our artistic endeavor over the pandemic. So I think we both feel very protective of it in a way. So it's so scary to kind of like put your ideas out there. And I would just hate for like my lack of experience doing lighting to affect this, project overall. You know what I mean? And we have lots of help from Fringe and stuff, but that is a big fear of mine, I think. Or like my, lack of marketing, or things like that. Just that like I've never I've never done before. So that's very scary. That's a really scary thing. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's a lot of time to ask of people. That's always the thing for me leading projects. Be like, especially something where we don't have like a ton of financial backing. Just being like, well, we're gonna have to rehearse this, a bunch, and you guys have to look at this music ahead of time and everything. And as much as I try to give as many materials and make it very clear and concise, and it's still going to take a lot of time for people to expect people to do that is tricky sometimes. Yeah.
And I think to speak to that too, and having you sort of have and viewers and listeners have an inside of like a third party person who has had the material, had the music. This music is stunning. There really is a marriage between like what the tone of the piece is and what the character singing the piece is, and like how those things come together. And I guess just another peek behind the curtain, working through some of the stuff with Steve and Katie a week or so ago. It was like when you'd learned the music, you'd looked over the music, and I went in with like an idea of what it was going to sound like. And then when I was in the space with Steve playing live, it's almost like there was like the music cracked open another part of the character. And I was in that moment of like, oh my goodness, this character is evolving differently in this moment than I rehearsed it to be, or than I thought it to be. And again, I think it's a combination of the tone that each piece kind of brings to the forefront, and then also what it means to be in space singing that song or being that character in that moment. And so I just look forward to, it was kind of like an aha moment as me as the performer of being like, oh my gosh, these songs are going to just keep evolving. It's not going to be like, okay, good, we're done song 1A, now we're going to song 1B. I think that was something that clicked for me of like, this is just going to, the more bodies, the more people we bring in, it's just going to keep evolving to be. And I think that's beautiful. I think like not every musical has the capacity of doing that, or even is wanting to try to do that. But this is just what I'm learning about this piece being kind of a bit of like an ethereal, like Katie was saying, the literal in between life and death moment, how like this musical kind of happens in that piece of time or life, I guess, reflects itself beautifully in the way that the music is written.
So kind of, and we're like so grateful to have, the group of people that, and you included, like a testament to you as well. We're so grateful with the people we've put together that I think it is going to be we've talked a lot about it being a collaborative process in terms of kind of just, this is the first time these characters have ever breathed the light of day, right? So kind of really seeing what people bring to it. And kind of really, making sure that there's a lot of play, a lot of, in this very short time span, to put this together. But, that it feels very collaborative, I think would be, really nice. So,
totally.
Yeah.
So as we mentioned, it'll be premiering at Calgary Fringe Festival. Do you want to let our viewers, listeners know like specific show times, dates, kind of, or maybe not necessarily like the time frame of the show, but I guess the dates and where it's happening, how folks can tune in?
Yeah, so it runs in Calgary at this is what I wanted to get out, the Lantern Community Church. So it's right downtown, very close to Inglewood if you're a Calgary person. And then, we run Friday, July 29th is our opening at 6:30 p.m. And then we close on Friday, August 5th at 6:30 as well. Yeah.
Great.
And then, and we'll have
7 shows.
Yeah.
6 of them are at that place, and one is a live stream from Festival Hall.
Yes.
Yeah, so this actually might be a really important thing. So
absolutely.
For all of so Jill's from Ontario, we also live in Toronto. So there is a live stream. So it's Thursday, August 4th at 7:45 p.m. Mountain Time. So that's 9:45 p.m.
Eastern.
Toronto time. Yeah, right. Eastern. But the show is only 45 minutes. It's really, really fast. Yeah, but we're hoping that a lot of people tune in to the live stream. We're super excited about it. We get to share.
Yeah. Absolutely. So to reiterate, Calgary, Katie gave the Calgary dates for in-person Calgary listeners, viewers, And then for those of us who are outside of Calgary and want to tune in, live stream happening August 4th at 9:45 p.m. Eastern. And it's only 45 minutes. So grab a little nightcap and be immersed into what is Flash on your beautiful computer screens. Cool. Love that. So this may be not even on your minds yet, because one step at a time, one notch at a time for this project, but do you have any plans for Flash beyond Calgary Fringe yet, or potential? What could you see this maybe becoming? Or
a really good question. I think
we don't have anything in the works yet.
Right.
Yeah, I know we've talked to, we would love to do it here in Toronto at some point in time. So it's kind of, it's really nice that we get to do it in Calgary and kind of figure out some stuff and just put it up on its feet and kind of workshop it a bit. Yeah, and then that would be so lovely if in the future we got to do it again. But yeah, I think right now we're pretty singularly focused on just making it through the Fringe.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Who knows?
Who knows? Stay tuned. Exactly. Okay, so diverting just a tiny bit away from Flash, but staying in the same realm as the two of you being, in my opinion, I guess I have a bias, but phenomenal co-collaborators from like the content point of view and also just as people. Do you have any co-writing projects in the works aside from Flash? Or if you do, could you tell us about those? But if you don't, do you think there may be some down the line? Or maybe you just don't know, because right now your brain is in Flashland, which is okay too. But
no, we do. We really like the idea of doing something in the future. Yeah, we've kind of floated this idea around. I'm like, we're doing this. No. We've kind of floated the idea of doing kind of something more in the cabaret style, which would be kind of fun and cool. And then we've got a couple things that are like not quite fit to print. Yeah, but some things that, we've kind of started.
Nothing we've actually really started working on beyond a few conversations is kind of up with the main concept with you.
Cool.
Yeah, but lots of ideas. So
nice.
Yeah, hopefully we get to do something beyond Flash with the rooms.
Yeah. Stay tuned for that too. This is not the end of these two, I will tell you that much. Amazing. So do either of you have anything you'd like to talk about regarding the piece, or any sort of think tank questions you want kind of floating in the room?
Yeah, I guess I'd be so curious to kind of know from your perspective, Jill, just because, you are really kind of one of the first people we've shared this material with. Yeah. What are your kind of initial thoughts, what do you think? Because it's funny, like, I know we kind of both have a similar background of like being very much in musical theater. And this, for me, even writing it with Steve, was very different from anything that I had heard before, and much trickier than any, like, the music was very difficult for me to learn initially. So I'm kind of curious what your initial thoughts were on like listening to the music.
Yeah, I think I had a combination of thoughts. One thing that I kind of like that I came into the project with, I've had the privilege of being in a Sondheim before, and I've had the honor of singing Jason Robert Brown before. So I kind of know as a performer of those are composers that are their materials like known to be a bit trickier or difficult, and rhythm wise is kind of throws you off kilter than like some other works do. And so that kind of helped me, I think, ease into this musical's arrangement, because I love doing musicals where the music is difficult, because I think that, to me, dramaturgically adds so much to the characters at hand. And I would say, like, what you guys wrote, it's not like, oh, this is so hard, but like it is challenging piece and challenging music, but in the concepts that are offered for the characters in the storyline, I think it makes sense that that these pieces of music are so complex. And I think, as Katie was saying too, that the cast predominantly being casted as not cisgendered men, I think that also speaks to the type of bodies that are on stage and how the music sort of aligns with the wide swath palette of folks that could be on stage for this musical. And so I noticed going through the score, I was like, okay, this is not gonna be like a walk in the park. This is gonna be more like Sunday in the Park with George. Like this is where we're at. But in such a good way and a challenging way that is very fortifying as an artist and a musician. And I think also the fact that all of the characters, we were talking about this recently, Katie, of like all of the characters are, like their own element, but I should talk about this earlier in the interview of like how they all sort of can inspire or impact each other. It kind of had me, as I'm listening to the score, being like, oh, if this is Air's song, then this is like the style or genre that Air will sing. But then as you go through the score, you're like, oh, no. There's like qualities that each of them kind of have. There's no like, this character sings this type, this character. So they're, again, adding that layer of beautiful challenge of like, you can't just sink into the laurels of a certain sound or a certain timbre because your character is not doing that in the next song, or another character is doing that same thing in the next song. So it's like, I don't know if I'm getting like really deep dive dramaturgical. What is the music?
Interesting point too, because I've never asked this of you. Was that ever a thought for you when we knew which characters would be singing which song? Were you thinking like, oh, this is more of Fire's song, like
genre wise,
or even I know that there's some motifs that kind of play.
That's more what it is.
Yeah.
So I did try to write like motivically within the characters, and just throughout the show as a whole. I think I mean, Fire's a good example. Those two songs, like they both kind of start with they're both based on the same like melodic motif, right? But it kind of takes on a different quality just because of what's being said at that time. And I think that kind of, even just outside of the fact that there's numerous songs per character, just even in the course of one song, the lyrics that you provided were moved, so I moved with them, right? Like I didn't just stay with this 4-chord progression or something because it had been established. If the lyrics suggested something else, I would go there.
Yeah.
And I think you have such a good variety of, because, well, I don't know if this is why, I might be speaking completely ignorantly right now and tell me. But because Steve has this jazz background, like the amount of chords that he just has knowledge of, and kind of like the different styles or like sentiment and kind of flavor they inject into certain areas of the song is like astounding.
Yeah.
So it's so specific, at least, to me, who's not, who does not have a background in,
and they're
they're
so catchy too, because Ryan, viewers, listeners, Ryan, the Cup Ryan, is singing bits of this musical already. Like, and Ryan's not a singer. I'm throwing Ryan under the bus. I'm throwing him right under the bus. He's not a singer, but around we will lose all of our subscribers. We love Ryan. We'll have him stick to the dramaturgical unpacking. Now that I've thrown Ryan under the bus. But he'll just be tooting around our apartment singing, that's the thing about wildfires. And I'm like, I love that you know that song, but I'm like, that's not my song. I don't have to sing that part. So I'm like listening to it, having it sink in. But he's like, it's so catchy. Both of us are noticing that so much. And something to speak to too. To kind of go along what you were talking about, Steve, of how like you were writing, what was the way you said it? Motif? What did you say?
Motif.
Yeah.
But you said like motifify or motif.
Motivic?
Motivic. Yeah, something like that.
That's a great word.
Great.
Yeah.
Like I need it. I need it. But anyways, beside the point. Yes, you were saying how the lyrics, you had a moment of like, if the lyrics kind of went along with the motif, great, or with the melody or musicality, great. If not, like you kind of pivoted accordingly. And something that I want to talk about, lyrics, like the lyrics of this piece, to me, there are some moments obviously where they're repeated, or segments where you can kind of, as the performer, sink into like, okay, this part sounds exactly like this part, so great, Gucci gravy. But there are other elements of the song where it basically is like a monologue to music, or like the phraseology reads more as a monologue than as like lyrics to a melody. And to me, that I just remember, like when I was in theater school, my singing elective, I struggled very much with singing and acting. I kind of grew up with it a bit separate, unless I was like in a musical. I was kind of like, okay, I'm acting in this project, and then I'm singing in this project, like for like choir or whatever. And it took me a while to be like, no, like in musical theater, you are acting out the song. So like there would be, I just remember Denise Outrick, if you're listening, saying like, that was one of my vocal coaches in school, was saying like, it's a monologue, that you were just singing a monologue basically. Or one of the exercises would be like, just say the song like a piece of theater, like a piece of monologue, and then sing it. And what I love about this piece is that learning it, you kind of are forced to start there. At least in my sort of process with it, is like, this is the story you're telling, and you're telling it to music. So I guess, that's just kind of, again, a peek behind my curtain of I appreciate that, because it's kind of, it's making me do two steps at once, as opposed to be like, let's learn the music and then be like, right, I have to act out this song, right? It's kind of like doing it congruently. And I think that also just to me, again, makes it different than other musicals, or like other genres of musicals, because a lot of the time I feel it's usually like the lyrics and music are a bit song and dancey, or can be a bit song and dancey, whereas this, I feel like they're like working with each other, against each other at the same time. Like it's hard to articulate. But sorry, what you were going to say something, Katie?
No, I was just going to say, I think that kind of goes, like, says something to the process in which we actually kind of crafted these songs, because a lot of the time I would come forward with lyrics, and Steve would kind of start to kind of figure out what they sounded like,
Yeah, there's a lot of that. Yeah.
Yeah.
And a lot of the time it was like, I get like, you just give me like a couple lines, or maybe a verse or a chorus, and I'd be like, oh, like what if the next one we kind of went here with it? This is kind of what I'm hearing musically.
Cool.
And, that's where it seems like it wants to go musically. So can we make the lyrics work? There was a bit the other way too. And the very first song we did, it was music first. So.
It was music first, yeah.
But I think other than that, it always started kind of with lyrics, and then at least not like we had all the lyrics and then I wrote all the music to the lyrics.
Yeah.
And I mean, in some cases, like we wrote the complete song, and then we changed, like we talked about, and then we changed what the whole song is about.
Like the entire song. Yeah.
Cool.
So, but I do, I in musical theater really like the idea that like the first thing that comes is the story, or is the acting, right? And I think that, but I also think too that those things can go hand in hand, right?
Yeah.
Like the music helps to tell this story, right? And especially with something like this that is so, these moments that we're talking about are so heightened emotionally, like, which is why we can't, fitting a book in doesn't really make sense, because every single moment is so charged, But yeah, I like the idea because like I did that in theater school too, right? It was always like I read somewhere that someone said if you've been told to say your song is a monologue, you might get you might be rewarded with financial compensation.
Oh my
God!
God.
Yeah, because it's so. I remember being in theater school being like, saying my song is a monologue. I don't want to do. Like,
and it's
so
also
awkward.
so hard to do, especially songs that like you
Yeah.
know how to sing and is already so much baked in your body as like, this is how I sing the song, this is how it goes, or you've heard someone else sing it, but then they're like, okay, now write it out and say it like a monologue. Well, rhythmically, you're so married to like this phrase is musically said like this, but it's like that's not how we talk. So it's like yeah, it's been a really good exercise of like, okay, we're doing two things at the same time. And also it's neat with this being, I guess it's also beauty of it being a piece of like a premiere musical, like it's like a piece of music that I've never heard before. So that's been a really fun adventure for me.
Yeah, we've so enjoyed. Even I don't know, this will come out later, but but we had Jill over here last night doing some promo stuff. It was so fun just to get it kind of up on its feet. And
and we even kind of started talking about the song, even though we were just doing little snippets of the song. Like, but when we get into the bigger part of the song, like, we can say it this way, and what we
kept being like, when this happens, and we're like, oh, well, we're only doing
ahead of ourselves. It's hard not to.
15 seconds right now, so maybe we can't talk about this fully, but
just make it sound good.
Just make it sound
good. Doesn't
matter
what the story is. No.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh, that's gonna. I'll just tell you right now. You're probably gonna have to tell me to do that a couple times. Be like, chill. Just like the drama. Also, viewers and listeners know too. Like the dramaturgical unpacking of like every moment of a piece. What does it mean? Why is it this way? No, but I'm so looking forward to this journey with the two of you, and meeting the rest of our cast and any crew involved. Like everyone's gonna be a part of this premiere. Here, I think, is a beautiful time that we will replug the project. And if the two of you want to give any social handles, any links, obviously any links that Katie or Steve provide, we will provide that in the description below. But any social handles for Flash or for yourselves, the floor is yours.
I'm mostly active on Instagram. My Instagram is Mercier Miller, so MERCIER Miller with an E. And please follow our Flash Instagram page. That's Flash_musical. And I'll provide maybe Jill or Mac with just a link to the Fringe ticket site. So if anyone's
lovely
to buy tickets, that's the way to go.
Social media. I think.
Do you remember?
I think my Instagram is @SteveJohnDale. That's probably what it is.
I think that is what it is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, that's mostly where I'm active as well. With Facebook. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I've recently gotten on TikTok, but I never post anything, so please don't follow me on TikTok.
I haven't even tried.
Should we make a Flash TikTok?
Hey, I'm down. Let's do it. And I think alongside, so we'll pop all those handles down below, and alongside the link to tickets that Katie's going to provide down the line, if we get access to the live stream link, we can pop that on our pages as well. Amazing. So thank you both so much for being here with us today. As always, too, on my end, I will say, folks who are listening, if this is your first time listening to The Cup, go ahead and give Cup of Hemlock a subscribe, like, comment below. We love to hear from you. Follow us on our pages as well. But it's a complete honor to have you both on the show talking about the Canadian premiere of your new musical, Flash. And I really appreciate you talking about the process and about the project. I know that's also a very vulnerable space for writers, and we appreciate your voices and your work. And we will stay tuned for all that is still to come. So on that note, I'll do a final cheers. And
cheers with whiskey now?
We've evolved. Amazing. Cheers. Stay safe, folks, and we'll see you next time.